Welcome. This is Ralph Bivins with the Ralph Bivins Project. We're here today to talk about downtowns, very important cores of our city, the hubs of our city, important places that where we live and hopefully work and hopefully enjoy and play the whole thing. And it's of course it's a complex deal, transportation and keeping growth going and everything. But we're really lucky today to have Chris Larson, who's studied downtowns, worked in downtowns, considered a downtown expert, and he's also president and CEO of the Central Houston Association, which oversees one of the fourth largest city in the nation, and they keep saying maybe the third largest if Houston catches Chicago. So, Chris, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ralph. And I will share with you that my counterpart in Chicago is very nervous that we will catch up with them by the next census and feels that it is imminent. So we just got to keep on growing.
Yeah, I think they're losing people in Chicago, so we're doing better.
That's right. We're going the right way.
Right. And you've been here you came here from Los Angeles, Hollywood, and doing similar work there. So you've been here 6 months or so. Maybe a little longer, and so I'll start you off with the easy question. You've been here long enough to get this. It'd be just what about downtown what's your favorite thing about downtown Houston?
My favorite thing about downtown Houston, I would say, is that we've got a number of the key component parts that most cities would clamor for. So whether it is a destination park like Discovery Green or outstanding theater or ballparks or Fortune 500 headquarter companies, all of those are individual pieces that most cities do fight over. And so we've got a lot of the building blocks to build a great and successful downtown community.
Well, that's true. Right? The park, everybody in Houston loves that park and Discovery Green. Okay, well that was my softball question.
All right, zip them in now. I'm a former baseball player, so I'm ready.
What's the biggest problem, or what's the biggest challenge, or the biggest problem, or the biggest fix we need to make, Chris, in Houston?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge that we have right now in downtown, and my world and my work is really focused on downtown specifically, just for clarification for your audience. But I would say that in downtown is that we've got to do better at enabling greater connectivity, particularly within the pedestrian realm, and the spaces that connect all of those great assets that I rattled off. We've got all of these wonderful attractions. We've got all of these wonderful assets, but the spaces between is where we've got a lot of work to do.
So, but between Discovery Green and a Fortune 500 company office, there are sidewalks everywhere. What more could you do?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to activating the building edges. So really where those skyscrapers meet the street. We have a lot of passive types of land uses. In some ways, we really just have a continuation of the building wall itself, all the way down to the sidewalk. And that does a couple of things that discourages walkability. And walkability is a critical component to building cities. And I know that sounds counter to the way that a lot of people imagine cities. In their minds, cities are, hardscape and glass and steel, and those elements of physical skyline building tools. But cities are best when they really are designed to serve the needs of people. And those needs, they vary throughout the day. And so oftentimes those needs are met by an active public realm, and really that first floor level of a city is really where those buildings meet the street. And I think we have some opportunities to retrofit the current environment, but also to be smarter about how we design in active use, storefront use, to encourage more pedestrian vibrancy. And that vibrancy can and will be a panacea for a number of our challenges in downtown. And although I am new to the community, been here basically in the saddle for about 6 months, I will say that Houston is not a truly unique city. There's a lot of great components to it, but we operate a city in a climate that is similar to New Orleans, that is similar to Orlando, that is similar to Miami. Lots of cities around the globe have a hot climate, and I think and we sometimes want to reward ourselves for being the air conditioning capital of the planet. But I think we could do more to get outside and appreciate what we do have. Might not be 365 days a year, but there's certainly 250, and we can design for that.
Yeah, I thought about that recently. Walt Disney goes to Orlando, and their weather is not that different from Houston, but yet it's one of the biggest tourist cities in the world.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you can compare it.
Hot and humid. They did it, which is like people automatically know it's the climate's not right for Houston being tourism oriented. But going back to what you say about yes, and I totally agree. I totally agree with what you're saying with the approachability for pedestrians when they come across these major edifices, 50-story buildings. From the sidewalk, there's not a real, in some cases, especially with the older buildings, there's not a real welcoming thing. But if you do notice, I don't know if people have been downtown recently, but the new Heinz Tower at the Texas Tower they call it, which is Texas and Travis and mine, facing that 47-story building. It does have there'll be restaurants on the ground level, a really cool looking bar with this great, tremendous woodwork inside that welcomes people to it's right across from alley, close to the alley and Jones Hall, all that. The theater district but the way they open that up with those two restaurants and that very welcoming lobby makes it a place that it is going to be accessible to the pedestrian without the fortress thing where this office building keep out. And how do you go back and retrofit that? I don't know how you go back and retrofit that to what do you do to some of these big skyscrapers that don't seem penetrable to for any human being. I don't know how you do retrofit that. It's there, so it's a good goal. I like what you're saying. You're going to make it walkable. You got to be able to walk somewhere without and go into these structures.
And it has other outcomes as well. And I certainly think that functional repositioning of some of the ground floors of the buildings is possible. It's probably not possible everywhere, but it is possible. Most of the sophisticated developers like a Heinz, they recognize that an active, desirable ground floor use adds value to the upper floors. It adds value to the perception of the property itself, and yet it's still such a small component of the overall GLA of the property itself. But it is.
JP Morgan Chase, the 75-story building, the tallest building in town. Yep. They recently came in and kind of extended the lobby area with glass, kind of a diagonal glass thing that reminds people of the Louvre. But it really extended it and make it opening and energize the plaza, outdoor plaza there. So they did. That building's been there since '82, so it can be accomplished to make it more easy access to folks, or feel more easy access.
And the other piece, I mean, there's other, I think, benefits to this. And number one is just as a pedestrian, as you move through a community, the more things to preoccupy your mind and to look at, to observe, to appreciate. It also helps to truncate your perception of distance between points. And so if it is an exciting walk, 3, 4, 5 blocks, it's almost as though you're not noticing the time pass as you're enjoying that experience. And that's how we help to encourage more walkability. We have a very flat downtown, which lots of communities would hope for. So it positions us to be highly walkable, highly bikeable. But the more individuals that we get out walking in the environment will also help to overcome issues like perception of safety. And that's something we hear from a lot of both property owners and tenants is concerns about perception of safety, just because it feels as though you sometimes can be vulnerable if you are out walking on a sidewalk alone, and in particular after dark. And it's that feeling of vibrancy, the feeling that you are among your peers, among your fellow members of your community, that also helps to support those other feelings of comfort in a community. And so I think that's a real opportunity for us as well.
Yes, the perception of safety is huge, and I've heard people, complain about it. I've heard lately, and this since COVID, there are more homeless that are taking over blocks, and in some of those blocks that don't feel safe to walk down, and it's intimidating for the stranger, for somebody coming in, and there are people sleeping on the sidewalks and stuff. That doesn't feel safe, because that's a lot of people don't understand that. They don't live like that. They don't know if these people on drugs, or they have mental problems, and they probably do. And you feel for them. You want the best thing for them, but when the streets are overpopulated with that, it can make it unpleasant for everybody. I don't know how you fix it. I don't know the solution to the homeless issue. And everybody wants something good for the people that can't cope and are there in that manner, and for whatever reason, economic, whatever it may be. But I don't know what you do.
Yeah, there's two things on that comment, and maybe this is a topic for a future podcast of yours, but Houston, more so than any other major American city, has made tremendous strides in housing its homeless population. Really, since the onset of COVID, they've been able to direct and leverage federal resources into very specific housing programs, and have decreased the overall number of homeless individuals by about 50% just over the last 2 years. Most communities, those populations have only grown over that same time. And so there's tremendous successes that have been achieved, still work to do for sure. But the other piece, I think, is you talk about that human experience, just walking down the street, the sidewalk. And that's one where I think that as individuals, we tend to confuse fear and think about that as a function of safety versus discomfort. Because the number of crimes that we have that are sort of homeless individual that is attacking a stranger or something like that, I mean, those things are very, very, very small. There is more of a concern of that type of activity that is happening, but it isn't happening in reality. There is a lot of homeless on homeless crime. We see that amongst vulnerable populations. That's not a Houston story. That's right now, I think it's an American story. But I do think that it's also sort of facing that reality of the inequities that we have enabled in our societies right now, and how things like the inability for the housing market to keep pace with demand, our struggles with mental health and addiction, recently released prisoners being introduced into society without a plan, and lots of firms not creating many types of hiring programs. I mean, there's a lot of, I think, social construct there that's worthy of unpacking to understand how we got to where we are. But there isn't a simple solution. To your point, to your question, there isn't a simple solution. It's a very complex one. But Houston, more so than any other American city, has demonstrated great strides on that front. And so I think it's worth more Houstonians learning about the progress that's been made.
Scrolling back a little bit to what we kind of alluded to a second ago, just the feel of having population there on the street level. I know when there are people walking around, you feel okay. No matter if you do have to navigate around a homeless guy sleeping on the sidewalk, the population, this is big. There's a lot, people that do go downtown now, and they used to remember what it was like when you go and at lunchtime, people walking around, it's crowded. There's activity, there's what, and of course since COVID it shut everything down, and unfortunately we just don't have that same type of sidewalk energy anymore. I don't know what because a lot of people aren't coming to work. They don't have to come to work. They can go to work 2 days, 3 days, or some companies are still haven't made it back into the office on at all. And some are doing 3 days a week, take off Friday, take off Monday, whatever. This back to work thing, this back issue. Do you have any fresh numbers on what you think the actual physical occupancy is of people going back to work right now in downtown Houston?
Yeah, the short answer to that question is it's about 50%. We use a tool to track basically the movement of cell phones. So we're able to look at that movement pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. We have a 3-day lag on it. So I think the short answer to that question is about 50%. But to your point, it does range throughout the week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are our most populous days. And right now we're peaking at around 56, 57% return to office. Usually Wednesday is that peak day, with Monday and Friday being laggards. So Monday is usually around 40%, and then Fridays are more around about a third of the overall downtown population. So we see sort of literally a camel's hump throughout the week in terms of that return to office trend, which is markedly different than it was pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic was more of a stable of 4 days, Monday through Thursday, and then a Friday retreat by about 25%. So it's changed in its I think in its dynamic because of those overall 3-day work week patterns that most companies have allowed. But that has other major impacts, to your point, not only in just in terms of vibrancy, but you're essentially losing half of the consumer demand potential that all of those employees brought to downtown on a daily basis. And we're seeing that have two different kinds of impacts. Number one is, first you had just 166,000 people that were maybe going to spend $10 a day for lunch or something like that. So you take that and you cut it in half, right? And which means that all of that consumer demand potential is lessened.
But I feel sorry for the deli guys
that's right.
Used to sell $5,000 worth of sandwiches. Now it's a lot less. Tough sledding for them.
That's right. And what we're actually seeing is also sort of a movement to higher sales, less frequent. So if folks are coming down only 3 days a week, they're more likely to go to a nicer restaurant for lunch twice a week versus the grab and go style lunches that were more common previously. So those dynamics are playing out in different ways with some of our tertiary real estate product that's critical to helping to shape the overall downtown experience. But right now, what we're seeing is a shift in terms of the consumers that those businesses serve, in terms of having a primary focus for the office worker to now really trying to diversify to attract the downtown resident and the downtown visitor.
Yeah, well, one thing just right off the top of my head, I would say, why don't we recommend Mayor Turner and say, can we ease up on the parking meters for a while? Let's cut parking prices down, and that would maybe I'll get some more people to come down here. Maybe there'll be more people coming in. Hey, I hadn't been to Treebeards in a while. I'm going to drive downtown and parking on the street, and if it was really cheaper, you might get more visitors from outside. You might make it easier if people are trying to cut down their parking. I don't know, but that's one idea. Yeah, we ought to tell him that. Okay, that's the other thing. Part of this is also the office market, the downtown office market. It's about 25% leased, I guess, and And it's big office market. There's nothing else. Yes, energy corridor is significant. Yes, Uptown Gallery is significant, but um, you know, over 40 million feet, 40 million square feet of office space. That's a lot of major towers. So we have a lot of vacancy there, and the pace of new space being leased is not what a lot of people would like to see. The influx of new corporations coming from outside the city and downtown is certainly not like what we want to see. That's been lagging for too long, way too long, and needs to increase. And I hope that Mayor Turner gets on that, and whoever succeeds then will emphasize that also, just the importance of economic development and direct that into more jobs in downtown Houston. I think is pretty critical. We can't let our core decay. We don't want to be an empty donut. We got to, downtown's an important part. We need to have people working there. But the big deal, we're looking at these buildings that are, there's, what is it? I think it's like 14 million feet in downtown alone vacancy, and we're actually going the wrong way. It's more is becoming lately, the last couple of years, more going vacant than being filled. So how do you fill up 14 million square feet of vacant space? What are we going to do about that?
Well, I guess there's two pieces to that puzzle, and I think you've got to attack the problem from both directions. Number one is, while that number sounds large, I mean, we are looking at about a 25% vacancy rate right now. Some of that vacancy rate is skewed by properties that are not occupancy ready, that they have been unoccupied, like the former Exxon Tower, have been vacant for a number of years now. It would take a serious lift to fill a building like that, with the size of a deal that just doesn't come along very often. I mean, right now, office leases don't move in chunks of $500,000 anymore. So the likelihood of that getting filled quickly is very, very low, right? So you have to think about those properties, I think, as opportunities to reposition those assets for other uses. And this is what a lot of American cities are looking at right now: is how do you reposition those obsolete properties into more desirable land uses that are in demand right now, like housing. Housing is a critical need for downtown as it continues to diversify its user base. And so we're looking at creating some programs that might help to incentivize that transition, which would help to decrease that overall percentage of vacancy, particularly with properties that are really not competitive. And so that's something we're looking at.
Remember what we did? Maybe it's been, I don't know, maybe 10 years now, but the downtown living initiative, where we're trying to get developers, and developers responded with this: if you build a new apartment project in downtown, we'll give you $15,000 in credits for every unit of every apartment, 15,000 per. Why not start that up for, okay, we'll do the same darn thing for if you're converting the building, like the Exxon building at 800 Bell, you're going to convert that from office into apartments. Why not have the extension of the downtown living initiative, but make it a little bit different for if you're converting office to living?
That's exactly right, and it would probably take a more nuanced form than simply repeating the DLI, but that's exactly what we're looking at, is understanding that financing gap between where we are today and the current status quo versus how we get to where we want to be, which is occupied buildings. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, we want occupied real estate in downtown, and that can mean lots of different things, lots of different kinds of people. But two additional comments that I want to make, which I think are related to this, is that number one, we're seeing a lot of reinvestment in downtown. So in addition to new office towers like the Texas Tower, right, and 1550 on the Green from Skanska, right, those are, tens of millions of dollars worth of bets on downtown's future and ability to attract companies. Right. So I think it's important to phrase an understanding of those investments that say, like, there's a lot of confidence in the long-term health of downtown. But we also see significant repositioning of assets, right? Buildings that might have been Class B or Class C of the past. The one I'm sitting in right now, at 2 Houston Center, has been significantly repurposed and essentially has created a new form of Class A office space in downtown. And so there's been hundreds of millions of dollars in repositioning some even of the older building stock. And so that flight to quality is a lot of what we're seeing in downtown right now. The folks that are still here are also upgrading the quality of their space. And so that's important. But then on the strategy side, I think one of the real opportunities is working with property owners and really feeling the pinch and the pressure of this right now, this down cycle that's been brought on by the pandemic, to try to open up the opportunities for creative leasing. And I think that this is a real opportunity for us to diversify our industrial composition and the business base of downtown. And certainly we are always going to be the energy capital, but we also don't want to be as dependent on one sector over time. It makes us less resilient as a city center.
Sure.
And so how we can do things like, half floor or quarter floor leasing or shorter term leasing terms for tech companies and others that are looking for something that is different than a large format long-term lease, which is what our property owners and brokers are used to doing in downtown. How we really open that up will also, I think, create an opportunity for us to welcome other sectors into calling downtown a place for their business as well. And so we're thinking about that as a strategy for helping to backfill some of that vacancy.
Well, that's can't happen soon enough, Chris. I mean, that's and it really needs to occur, and we need to get some activity back there. And I know just upcoming activity, just for terms of like people on the street type of activity. I know that we have the Trebley Park, and I guess Lynn Wyatt Park. Is that still happening? Those two parks in downtown look like they would. They're coming along. That took they got delayed, of course, but they're coming along.
It's a real privilege to be able to swoop into a community, and in my first year to be able to cut the ribbons on 2 new downtown parks. I mean, again, talk about things that don't happen very often in most cities. So we do have those 2 new parks. Trebley will open in September of this year, and so that is on the southern end of downtown, and then on the northern end of downtown, you have Lynn Wyatt Square, which is right in the heart of the theater district. That will open in November of this year. And so those are both going to be, additional jewels, in the crest of downtown to create spaces that attract people, help to give you different reasons to want to be downtown, and to really complement the experience, whether you're just in downtown to catch a performance, or, if you work downtown and you want to step out and enjoy a nice day or feel the sun on your face, a place like Trebley is a spot to do it.
Yeah, the one thing about Trebley, let me just kind of go off script, okay? Trebley, okay, that's an okay name, but I also was thinking, if it's not too late, maybe we need to think about making that park naming after Bob Urey, the guy who preceded you. He worked in downtown for decades and decades and really hard. So, if I was mayor, I'd say, why can't we name that Urey Park or something? He deserves it. He did a lot to, with this, like the apartment construction and a lot more for so long. So I'd like to see him get more recognition.
That's a great idea, Ralph. I'll be sure to run it up the flagpole.
It's a little late,
but Bob would probably be a little embarrassed to hear that, and probably wouldn't want to be any part of it.
He's a modest guy, but he deserves it.
But I'm sure he'd feel honored.
Hey, one other, other big thing I think we have Oh, well, we're on parks. Let me ask you about this. What about, I heard this, the infusion of um, art, I guess, kind of like um, into the streetscape. And, I'm thinking about murals and things like that. I've heard that mentioned recently that you're thinking about that. Can you tell me about what may be on the plan there?
Yeah, that's, we've got a specific initiative that will introduce a series of world-class murals. I mean, we're talking about mega murals here. They might be 5, 6, 7 stories tall on the sides of some, uh, I'll just say, some hardscape eyesores throughout downtown. So bringing in some world-class artists and even featuring some local artists in delivering that project, which we're set for right now for this summer. So we're very excited about that. But that's going to be part of a broader initiative, getting back into enlivening the public realm and, having, enabling buildings to have I would say a more intimate relationship with people. Is that we retrofit some of those with different types of interventions. So it might not be simply conversion and adding active storefront use. It might be these other types of essentially dressing up the face of a building, transforming the streetscape, so that it creates a different moment, something that's a little softer on the eyes, and thinking about how we make downtown more of a sort of a walking art museum of sorts. And so that,
They just take the whole days in there and then paint the whole thing. That would be go vertical with it, Chris.
yeah,
But
that's one that I want to turn into a building, though. I don't want to live in that eyesore forever.
Yeah, but I think that I was in Wynwood in Miami in December, and it was pretty amazing. Just what, of course, this is an abundance of murals, and we're talking about every building, and it was a little bit more. It was very industrial in nature originally, so you're not talking about skyscrapers, but they made it into that all these buildings have murals, and some places they just let it be organic. There's graffiti and there's stuff and there's restaurants and density. It's pretty amazing, I know that guy that from the Gensler architecture firm there, Shamim, at the Miami office of Gensler. He's on the board of the Wynwood district, and he's design director at Miami office of Gensler, and he went to the University of Houston for his master's in architecture. But he's I'd say, hey, let him come over here and just give you some thoughts, because what they've done there, the way that's turned that whole area around, was just pretty amazing. I've never seen art used as such leverage and effective way to turn an industrial district into a place where there's living, there's office, there's restaurants, street life galore. It still feels real. It still feels organic. And I think Dinnerstein was over there with a pretty major tower that's on the edge, residential tower on the edge of that. It came out pretty good. So if you're going to try to do that, I think that would be something that a lot of people get excited about. Really do.
Yeah, we sure think so. And I appreciate you pointing out Wynwood. You're 100% right on that. And it's pretty interesting to hear that we've got a UH grad that's over there. That's certainly somebody that we should collaborate with and learn from. And I think that's one of the most fun parts of this work, is that cities, I think that we often read about economic development projects where one city is competing against another. In reality, cities are spending 95% of their time teaching one another, learning from one another, trying out new things, different approaches, and then sharing that information with their counterparts. And I think that that's a really special part of the industry that a lot of people don't recognize, is that in city building, there's a lot of architects behind the scenes that are experimenting and trying new things and figuring out how we continue to reposition, our inner cities to be really in service to the communities that they house. And I think that there's a real opportunities for us to not only learn from one another, but also to share the many of the great things that Houston's done.
Want to get, before we go, want to get this, just talk a little bit about, they call it what, North Houston Highway Improvement Project.
Yeah.
The big change of the freeways that go through downtown. And it's $7 billion, $9 billion. I don't know what it is now, but it's very important. What's the latest on that, Chris?
Yep. So that project is still under pause. It's a Title VI pause through the FHWA as they do their due diligence in investigating some concerns about the project and the potential for disparate impacts. As an organization, we have participated as essentially as a witness and helped to talk about what we see as benefits of the project and how it would help to transform the urban landscape, and in particular help to reknit neighborhoods that were separated many moons ago, 65 years ago when I-45 was originally constructed. And so that's, I think, it's an important conversation that is playing out right now between the feds and the state. And we're hopeful that there's going to be an opportunity for reconciliation where we're able to make some fine-tune tweaks to the project, but that we help to protect many of what would be these emergent green spaces and new connections that would really help to transform downtown's relationship with its near neighborhoods. That's a lot of the work that this organization has championed, essentially delivering caps and other types of bridges and connectivity elements that would tie the downtown back to the near neighborhoods that don't exist today. So it's really about breaking down barriers for us and creating more of those places that knit a community together.
There's nothing that builds a barrier like a freeway. I mean, every city is like, you have River Oaks on one side and not so nice neighborhood on the other side of the freeway. It's almost like a Berlin Wall that just boom. That's it. That's where the good stuff coming from stops. It won't pass here. So I'm really excited about some of those results when we do things like taking down the Pierce Elevated, which is unsafe and it is a barrier, and it's not a pretty place at all. It's horrible. I don't know how many gallons of urine have been spilled into that. People just living down there and using it as the bathroom. It's gross, and I just assume it'd be all cleared out. Some guys like Guy Headstead talked about, hey, let's try to make it like the High Line in New York. No, I'm tired of this freeway. I'm tired of it being there like a barrier, preventing downtown from spreading into Midtown. I think it needs to be go 100%, no High Line, knock off. Let's knock it all down. And I think it's a great thing. I think this green belt that they're talking about having around downtown, that's you got to have that. That sounds like a great thing that can happen. We take down the piers, that we can rebuild 59 and 45 around to the east side of the convention center there. And the deck park, I don't know if everybody's familiar with that. We're talking about depressing the freeway below the surface, of course, not at street level, but digging it down like it is on the Southwest Freeway there, about Mandel along in there, Shepherd to go store, you get to Shepherd. But depress that freeway below the surface, and then you come across and build a cap on top of it. And on top of that cap, it's green space. You plant grass. You have trees. You have places where people can gather and have a park. And it will be even bigger than Discovery Green if we can get it together, which which I think is, be 10, 12, 15 acres maybe. I don't know the exact size. Guy Hicks did. It's big, but it's would really be nice. And when you were talking, Chris, about, hey, let's let the good of downtown, what's good about town, kind of spill over to the east side and to Edo, in the midtown to the south, to all the neighbors, and let some of that affluence come there and improve these areas. And I see the good in all that. And I think if we can, it could be a great thing to make this a better place, make it a better city. We can take it down. And that park, the park over the 59 and 45 depressed freeways, that's an exciting idea. I encourage everyone to go to Dallas and see the Clyde Warren Park, where they did that, and the part of the freeways down below. And I think John Goff at Crescent came and got the city to, let's build this deck park. And it's what happened. All that land around there used to be nothing. It used to be parking lots. Maybe the best thing about it would be a drive-in banker. It was nothing. But now there people go there just like they do to Discovery Green, bring their kids, bring their dog every weekend. And around it, where there's parking lots that were worth nothing in terms of generating tax base, now you have buildings that are tall buildings for people, office buildings, residential buildings. It just create all this great place with great buildings that can be taxed, and that can help the budget for HISD, et cetera, et cetera. It was amazing transformation. And we need to get that done for the city. And I hope it gets done soon. And I would really like to see that happen. And you're a key figure in it. So Chris, you got to make it happen.
Well, no pressure. I will say that we're still working hard on it. It is we've not given up, and we're actually quite optimistic that we're going to come out of this process with an improved project. We firmly believe, to support all the points you made, this is an opportunity for transformation as a city, and it's an opportunity for Houston to lead the way in understanding how infrastructure of the 21st century can really do a lot more than the way we understood highways in the past. This is an opportunity to redefine what infrastructure means, and to use it to help to transform and improve our downtown and our city.
I agree. I think there's too many people that, I understand where they're coming from, and I respect their opinion. But it seems to me like there's a difference between building a grand parkway way out, 50 miles from downtown, that opens up more prairie for development. There's a difference between that and this freeway that's been there since the start of the 50s, I guess, maybe earlier, but it's been there for many decades. It is not a grand parkway way out in the sticks. It is a artery going through the middle of the city, and you've got these two major freeways that we're not going to be able to live without, 45 and 59. They're good. It's the aorta. It's right there in the middle. It's not some thing way out there. It's the middle of a transportation corridor, and the better it flows, the quicker it flows. You don't have people sitting in traffic forever spewing stuff out of their car. We're not ready to move to that stage. We got to get that thing flowing, get that building. And this is a good plan, and it's been worked on for many years, 15, 20 years. And I'd just like to see some unity. I'd like to see let's try to make it better for everybody. Let's try to make it for neighbors around it on both sides. They're now cut off from downtown by the freeways. Let's kind of let the good of downtown flow out. Let's make it green space. Let's make it good places. Let's make this a better city and not leave anybody behind. but let's make it a great place. And that's Houston would be better if we can do this and accomplish it with unity and harmony.
I'm with you, Ralph, and that's well said. And let's just not forget about those 10,000 trucks a day leaving the port that are delivering all the goods that we all want to get on our Amazon Prime shipping. That's an often overlooked, critical piece of that path is I-45 to get us all the stuff that we all want.
Yeah, we got to have that, and those guys need all the help they can get when they're diesel's $5 a gallon. I don't know what it costs to fill up a 18-wheeler, but you pull into that gas station when it's diesel's $5 a gallon, you're walking out there to spend $1,000 to fill up your tank. I guess it's pretty amazing.
That's right.
Hey, well, anyway, that's great to talk to you, Chris, and we're looking forward to seeing you cut the ribbon on those 2 new downtown parks, and we're looking forward to more street activity. We're looking forward to seeing these amazing murals you're talking about, and I hope we have just close to the density that they have in Wynwood. I guess if you guys haven't heard of Wynwood Arts District in Miami, it's amazing what they've done to those buildings, and the way it's just brought that whole area back from a forgotten warehouse district basically into a great place. Go online and check out the photos of that art. It's amazing transformation. But Chris, keep in touch, and we'll maybe get you to come back, I hope, and we'll do a progress report and see how things are going. I'm sure there'll be something new to talk about real soon.
Oh, there's always something new in downtown, Ralph, and I'd be honored to come back. So just look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Chris. Chris, CEO, Chris Larson, President, CEO of Central Houston Inc., and some other leadership places he's at, but we appreciate you taking time to be with us.
Thanks, Ralph. This was fun.